I like to do like subversive poetry, and she always wrote really maudlin, boring shit that I hated having to read in school, so I like to cheer it up a little bit with some sass. This one's called Much Madness is Divinest Sense. I don't know what she knew about sense, but okay. Much madness is divinest sense. To a discerning eye, much sense, the starkest madness. 'Tis the majority in this, as all prevail. Assent, you are sane, demure. You're straightaway dangerous and handled with a chain. Whatever. And also, she rose to his requirement, which is just, how nice, yeah. She rose to his requirement, dropped the playthings of her life to take the honorable work of woman and of wife. If aught she missed in her new day of amplitude or awe, or first perspective or the gold in using wear away, it lay unmentioned as the sea, develop pearl and weed, but only to himself be known the fathoms they abide. I've been ditching the poetry lately for fiction. I've been doing NPR's 3-minute fiction. I got a couple of those I'm gonna read. It's one I wrote in a parking lot on Thursday night. It's called When You'll Find Her. The traffic jam on Main Street was going to make Winchester Talbot late for work again. He muttered to himself as the intermittent stops and starts jerked him around. He was a little tired of feeling like a rope in a tug-of-war. If it wasn't errands for his ailing mother, he was picking up slack from his sister Petra at the office. Today was going to be different, though. He was finally going to plant his foot down and tell them to do for themselves for once. Winchester was contemplating parking the car and walking the rest of the way to work when his phone buzzed in his pocket. He swore loudly. He smiled at the curse word flying out of his mouth, as Mother would definitely not approve. As he attempted to retrieve his phone, his sleeve button got caught on his pocket. As he wrenched his hand free from his pocket, the button fell under the car seat and his phone flew right out the window. Winchester watched as the phone sailed through the air in slow motion and then landed with a crunch on the street. Almost immediately, a car going in the opposite direction ran over it, shattering it into pieces. Winchester fleetingly hoped the call wasn't too important. Suddenly, for no reason he could ascertain, the traffic suddenly sped up. Winchester drove past the office, his mind racing with excitement. He wasn't really sure where he was going, but he felt free, letting the path of the unknown lead him. He continued down the road, free from his constantly ringing phone, from the incessant nagging of his mother and sister. He could do anything today. It was filled with possibilities. He could have ice cream for all 3 meals. He could go home and go back to sleep, or maybe he could wander about the town and see what other people did all day. By this point in his reverie, he'd managed to drive to the next little town over, one that was flush with quaint little shops and boutiques. A glint in the window of one particular shop caught his eye. He immediately decided to go there, guided by a trick of the light. As he approached the shop, he read the sign, Madame Almond's Psychic Services. The door jingled as he opened it. Madame Almond was seated behind a tapestry-laden counter. The air was thick with a fog of incense, and it made Winchester's allergies immediately flare up. He sniffled. I hoped today would be the day you walked through my door, Madame Almond said. Oh, he asked skeptically. Ghost bumps, she said, showing him the bumps on her arm. There's someone you need to meet, she replied. Is that so? He asked. Yes, you'll meet her when you find that missing button, she said, pointing to his sleeve. Winchester nodded politely. He was far too practical to buy into this kind of nonsense, after all. Still, his curiosity caused him to ask, her who? You'll know, she said, smiling. The door jingled open, and a strangely dressed man in a suit with a purple tie and a matching bowler hat walked in. He looked rather distraught. Oh, if you'll excuse me, dear, I have another client. Not a problem, Winchester replied, confusedly backing out of the shop. As he headed back towards the office, his mind wandered. Again, he drove right past work and found himself parking the car near the remains of his shattered cell phone. That button had to be around here somewhere. something mean, so I'm gonna read some of my meaner stuff. I have something from 1998. This girl in some class pissed me off, so I wrote a poem about her. It's called Oh Perfect. Oh, she's the queen of the dromedaries. She has cheesy poof fingertips and still thinks she's perfect. She needs no explanation of this. Oh, maybe I should tell her anyway. I forgot about her lack of clarity in human connections. She crosses wires all the time. Oh, she still makes all the calls, and she's not the smart one. I can't explain this one to her. No, she's the queen of the dromedaries, and I hate her. This next one, I was feeling pretty mean, because basically, fuck cancer. So, yeah, fuck it right in the ass. Yeah. So a friend of mine had cancer and she kind of got sick, but she's better again now, thankfully. There was something called Undeserving Crowds, about just wanting to lose my shit in the middle of a room full of people and knowing those people don't deserve that. I'll just go have my tantrum on my own. I want to throw a tantrum and launch a crash test dummy off the tallest nearest building, destroy something that was meant to be broken. I want to swear up a storm that transforms into a tornado and blows through every single town, scooping up the villains and tossing them into the nearest sea. I want to set that sea to a rolling boil and look away, and plug up ears to the screams, because I want to scream all the rotten world away. And I have one more short story. It's called Bittersweet Symphonies. It's another of my 3-minute fiction that I was doing for this thing they were doing on NPR, which the NPR on there is awesome. Yeah. The anger rushed through me like bittersweet chocolate from the muffin I just devoured in my fat girl's attempt to eat the pain away. I felt it tug and pull at me, disengage itself from the lining of my stomach, and begin to reform into a dripping, soggy Sasquatch which let out a mighty roar. I muffled a cocoa-laced burp beneath my hand and inhaled deeply, checking the time on my cell phone for what was probably the 100th time. I picked up my coffee cup, held it to my lips, and then remembered I drained it 10 minutes prior. As I sighed, my stomach lurched, and the chocolate yeti rose up, burst through my esophagus, and congregated on the surface of my heart, where it transformed into a tuxedoed matchstick man, his stick-figure baton poised to lead my aggravation in song. With a flick of his tiny wrist, drum beats began to thump, blood pumping, bringing the rage to the surface of my tongue and hiding it underneath like a deflated kiss. Into my cell phone, I tapped out the first few words of an email I never intended to send. Dear jerk, thanks for nothing. You're too kind, the high-pitched voice of the conductor pinged in my ear. Feel the rage. He waved his baton and the drum beat resumed. Violins joined in, then woodwinds, and a choir of angels flitted down like snowflakes as I shook my head in sadness. A surge of bile flared up, my lack of gallbladder meaning no place to store or concentrate it, to break down the anger as it raged through my core, keeping up with the tempo. I tapped my finger on the table impatiently and deleted the message without sending it. There was no point, no harm, no foul, nothing other than this cycle of annoyance which I was trying apathetically to break. I tried to focus on the newspaper in front of me, but the words all slurred together into a meaningless lump of ink-stained pulp. The orchestra on the surface of my heart suddenly stopped as a man entered the cafe and paused to look around the room. Our eyes met briefly, and there was a glimpse of recognition as he saw the person he was meeting at the table behind me. With an imaginary snapping of fingers, the band resumed its frustrated tirade. I checked the time on my phone again. An hour had passed, and darkness was beginning to fall on the city. 5 more minutes, I thought, and the conductor cast an empathetic nod in my direction. I was nodding my head to the tune of the makeshift band on the main stage of my heart when a man approaching broke my reverie. I looked up expectantly, but it was only the server. May I clear that away, ma'am? He asked, pointing to my coffee cup. I scowled at the word ma'am as I didn't feel old enough to be called that. Take it away, I told him, trying to mask my annoyance. The band heard my cue as, take it away, boys, and began to play a marching tune. This time I took their cue and walked out the door in perfect accordance.